Hey there guys, we are on chapter 20 of Book Scavenger, and I just realized we're about halfway through this amazing book, and I'm already getting sad. How is that possible? Alright, so last chapter was very telling about the black cat, and we saw Mr. Remora again too, so that's kind of exciting. I don't really know who that is, or what role he's going to play later, but excited to find out. So, here is chapter 20. Emily and James sat side by side in the accordion section of the extra-long city bus on their way to the Black Cat restaurant. On one side of the bendy part was a woman with a crate on wheels packed tightly with plastic grocery bags, and on the other was a man painted head to toe in silver, reading a newspaper. Whenever he turned the page, the robotic sounds mysteriously accompanied his movement. Emily tried not to stare, but she swore his mouth wasn't moving to make the noise. James didn't give the silver man or plastic bag lady a second glance. Emily wasn't sure how much of that was due to him having lived in San Francisco his whole life and being immune to these kinds of sightings, and how much was due to his absorption in cracking Maddie's cipher. How could he be focused on anything other than Griswold's game right now was a mystery to her. Emily practically bounced in her seat. She was so excited, straining to read every street sign the bus approached in hopes that they would reach their stop already. Finally, they approached the intersection for the Black Cat restaurant, and James stood up to pull the bell wire. They exited through the back door and jumped to the sidewalk, and the bus whirred away. "It should be up here at the next corner," James said. They crossed the intersection of a busy 4-lane street and soon found themselves standing under a neon sign that jutted over the sidewalk. Jazz music tumbled out when they pushed the front door open. Emily's eyes adjusted to the dim interior. The hostess stand was unmanned, so Emily peered into the bar area where a heavy-set man with a bald, shining head wiped down a table. "We don't seat until 5 o'clock, the man said in a deep baritone voice without looking up. "We're not here to eat," Emily said. She sounded like a mouse compared with him. "Then what exactly are you here for, babies?" he said, not unkindly, his rag hovering over the table. "We left something," James said. "Last night," Emily added. "We need to get it back." "You two were here last night?" the man said. "With our families," James jumped in. "It was a large group." "Well, not that large," Emily added. What if there hadn't been any large groups last night? But large. A large but not large group, huh? The man considered this with a skeptical pout. "All right, I'll bite. What did you leave?" A book," Emily said. James poked her in the back. Okay, so maybe a book wasn't the best imaginary thing to leave at a restaurant. But she didn't know how Mr. Griswold's scavenger hunt was supposed to work. Did this man know about it, and he had a clue waiting for them? Or did they have to find it hidden somewhere? Maybe if she mentioned a book, he'd ask which one, and then she'd say the gold bug, and he'd offer her the next clue. But the restaurant manager didn't ask any questions, and if he thought it was ridiculous to have left a book in a restaurant, he didn't show it. He crossed to the hostess podium and picked through items that lay behind it. "I've got a cell phone, sunglasses, and an umbrella. No book." "Could we look around for it? We won't take long," James said. "We won't mess anything up," Emily added. Fine. The man waved them into the back dining room. "So what are we looking for exactly?" James whispered. Emily lifted a tablecloth and peered under a table. "I have no idea," she said. "I'm hoping we'll know it when we see it. Keep an eye out for anything that looks out of place. A note taped under a table or something like that." They worked their way through the dining area, lifting tablecloths and peering under chairs, scrutinizing wall hangings and the small clusters of carnations on every table. When they met in the middle, James asked, "Have you read The Black Cat yet? Maybe there's something in the story that's a hint for what we should be looking for." "Well, it's about a guy who drinks too much, kills his cat in a drunken rage, and then thinks the cat comes back from the dead. Then the guy goes even crazier and kills his wife and buries her in their basement, but he accidentally buries the zombie cat with her and gets himself caught. So I hope the story has nothing to do with what we should be looking for, because I'd rather not dig up dead bodies or zombie cats." It sounds like a Poe story. Geez, Hollister wasn't kidding. Poe really did have a twisted imagination, didn't he? Emily placed her hands on her hips and surveyed the restaurant. They had looked over every inch with no luck. Maybe we should say something to the manager about the game. Maybe he's supposed to give us our next clue. It was the best idea they had to work with, so they went to the bar where the manager shuffled papers behind the counter. "You find your book?" he asked without looking up. No," Emily said. She wasn't sure what to say next, but she didn't have to worry because James took the lead. "Did you know there's a story called The Black Cat?" James asked, climbing onto a bar stool. Emily hesitantly climbed onto the one next to him. "Is that what this place is named after?" The man set down the stack of papers and lowered his gaze to James. "Nope," he said. Nope, you didn't know there was a story with that name, or nope, that's not what this place is named after. The manager didn't respond. Well, have you read it? James asked. It's by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's about this guy who... So you didn't find your book? The man asked again. It's actually an Edgar Allan Poe book we're looking for. Have you heard of... James leaned forward eagerly. The Gold Bug? The manager walked around the bar, gripped their backpacks, and pulled James and Emily down from the bar stools. You kids didn't leave a book here, did you? He steered them towards the door. So what have you been doing? You get into the liquor? You leave a stink bomb somewhere? No, James said hurriedly. We found a secret message in a book, Emily blurted out. Do you have our next clue? The manager dropped his handle on their backpacks. What? He said with a shake of his head. No, I don't have a clue for you kids. Go play your game somewhere else, okay? I've got work to do. Emily and James sat in disappointed silence as they rode the bus back to their building. She'd been so certain that was where they needed to go. Finally, Emily said, well, at least we can cross the Black Cat restaurant off our list. The movement of the bus rocked them from side to side. James had his binder open again to Maddie's cipher. Emily looked out the window and watched the city pass by. Gray buildings, liquor stores. They approached a corner park that was raised and built over a parking garage. Its sign read, Portsmouth Square. Bright red pagoda, I don't know what that is, style awnings covered picnic tables. Lantern lamppost turned on for the evening as dusk settled in. A man climbed the stairs from the sidewalk up to the park. He moved in a sideways sway, long dreadlocks swinging across his back, and he carried a duffel bag. Hey, James, Emily elbowed him. Isn't that Hollister? James looked up. It is. I wonder what he's doing all the way over here. They passed the park and continued to stare out the window. James absent-mindedly plucked at Steve. Hey, Emily, he said. What if Mr. Griswold never finished his game? What if getting to the Black Cat story is all there is right now? Raven said the game wasn't supposed to start for a few weeks. No way, Emily shook her head firmly. He finished the game. She couldn't prove this, of course, but she knew it had to be true. It just had to be. Well, maybe we should focus on Mr. Quisling's cipher challenge for a little bit instead. Admit it, wouldn't it make your day to see her royal fungus with an official mushroom top hairdo? Besides, James punched a fist in the air and shouted, We must defend Steve's honor. There were only 2 other people on the bus, but they both turned to look at them. James gave an apologetic wave. Sorry. Steve has nothing to worry about, Emily reassured him. We'll make sure of that. James gave a light-tipped smile and returned to scribbling notes about Maddie's cipher. Oh, wow, look at that. That is the end of chapter 20. So, nothing at the Black Cat. It's kind of a bummer. I will see you guys next time for chapter 21. Bye.